Okay, so what we're about to get into is some of the most important things that I'm going to go over in this entire course. And I'm not just saying that to say that, like, I am serious. I went from a snowboarder who dislocates his knee when he does a trick to being able to do that trick so much more, land it 9 out of 10 times instead of 3 out of 10 times. I've been able to just be able to land on my snowboard, reduce injuries, and do all these crazy things by doing this simple thing. But let's dive right into it. So what I have for us right now is understanding our stance. Our stance is going to be everything. It's broken up into 3 parts. So we're going to dive into part number 1. Shoulders, hips, and knees are parallel to the slope. I have a couple examples of me at the mountain the other day so that we can have these visual examples. Okay. Now, this is a really big deal. So the shoulders are parallel to the slope. Our hips are parallel to the slope as well as our knees, okay? And these are really important. By being in this position, it allows us to absorb terrain equally between both feet. It allows us to generate the most amount of pop. And here's a couple examples. And if you and I were going to have a competition of who can jump higher, but you only got to use 1 foot and I got to use 2. There's an occasion where somebody might actually be better than me, but for the most part, both of my knees are going to be able to move my center of mass a lot faster and a lot higher by using both knees. Okay, so that's why it's important to be able to pop and have the use of both knees. The other thing is being able to absorb the terrain. There's times where you may want to hit a cliff. You may want to hit a 5-foot jump. Heck, you may want to hit an 80-foot jump and be able to come down on the ground. Well, guess what? All that force coming down, it's a lot. If we put all this pressure to just one knee, it's gonna be really bad, right? And over time, if I do that day after day after day, that one knee is gonna get sore. I might have knee pains. It's gonna be led me to having some knee issues and some injuries by just this body position. So this thing is important because let's say that there's a down rail, and now that down rail is at, wait, I'm gonna just switch this out a little bit. Okay, this down rail is about, let's just say that steep. It's not that steep, but can I get my hips, my shoulders, and everything to line up to that rail? Then that allows me to mimic this position right here pretty easily, okay? Next thing is, I have 500 pounds on my back and there's a barbell and I want to be able to lift the most that I absolutely can, right? If I'm just going to make this full screen for us real quick. If I want to take 500 pounds and put it onto my back and just sink down and stand back up by using both of my legs, both of my knees to be able to sink down and jump back, or not jump, but extend back up, I have a better chance of doing that weight if I have good mechanics and I go straight down, use both of my legs and go straight back up. Okay, so I want to be able to use our mechanics in our advantage, okay? So next we're gonna dive into, we're just gonna keep this going. Let me switch back over to the main screen. Okay, so here, I want to give you guys a couple examples of some positions you guys may be in. And unfortunately, we're going to discuss this a little bit later, and I'll tell you exactly why people struggle with this position. But we're going to give some examples of positions that are honestly just not as awesome, right? Okay, this position right here. If I was just riding down the mountain, there's my shoulder. I'm going to actually just draw that a little bit better here. There's my shoulders, about that angle, and about that angle. So we talked about it a little bit ago. There's a significant amount of pressure on that. I was trying to be funny there. A significant amount of pressure to be on that back knee. And imagine driving down the highway, and instead of the wheels of your car being in the front, they're in the back. What this means is I'm driving really, really fast, 100 miles an hour. Your back's really squirrely, out of control. But if my steering is in the front, then I can go 100, 200 miles an hour in the right car, and you steer from the front, and it allows you to direct where we're going a lot better. Same thing applies. If I'm in this position right here, I'm just in a less controlled position, okay? Okay, so now what if I'm too far forward in the front seat and I'm in this position right here? Well, then that's not ideal just to be cruising around. Hey, there may be a time and a place for that, but for now, we want to be able to understand that maybe this isn't an ideal position for a lot of things. Imagine coming off, here's a good example. Imagine coming off a 30-foot jump. All your weight's here. Where's all your momentum going? Yep. Eventually you're going to fall over potentially, right? So we want to avoid that position. Okay. Moving on. Okay, so here's some other examples I just wanted to throw in there. Our shoulders here are, whoa, okay, they're pretty exaggerated up. Our hips are there. And then our knees are actually not too bad. They're slightly off, but not too bad. But this is also an uncomfortable position. It's not that ideal stance that we were talking about, because imagine just being in that. Doesn't it look funny? And after like hurting my back, it's kind of like this weird pinchy feeling, and that just looks miserable to me. I would not want to snowboard in that position whatsoever. So we also have that position. It just kind of looks funny, doesn't it? It looks miserable. Okay, so now we got this really exaggerated forward positions. Knees, not too bad actually. Hips, just slightly down if you can tell. And then obviously that's like really exaggerated. Not a realistic position for us to be in. Okay, I'm going to clear that. So letting our body, our shoulders, hips, and our knees be parallel to the slope that is underneath us. That could be a rail. That could be we're on a down rail. It could be that we're taking off a jump, then we're in the air, we're matching that train still or the slope, and then now it goes downhill. Well, we got to be able to match that the entire time, okay? So shoulders perpendicular to the lead foot. This is going to be very important for us to identify, especially as I get into the next clip here in a second. But we have that crazy big back squat position. We have 500 pounds on our back. What if we just rotated through the spine? You know how much pressure is actually applied to that spine and how dangerous and vulnerable that may be? So we want to be able to stay more in this position. And here's an example of the position we don't want to be in. That barbell now is twisted on our back there instead of being in our kind of matching this right here, matching our board. It's significantly off. And that could lead to some challenges, and we're going to talk about that here in a second. Okay, I love this angle because it really demonstrates that position and really shows what we're dealing with here. So our shoulders are in that direction, turning that way. Then our hips are still that way. So we're really twisted up. Now, let's discuss this part. That position that I just showed you is an intuitive position. People love to be in that position. If we're in Mammoth, Colorado, East Coast, West Coast, doesn't matter. If you sat down at the bottom of the lodge and you watched for 5 minutes, you will see a large amount of snowboarders in that position. So we're going to discuss why. When we are walking down the street, when we're talking to a friend, when we're riding a bicycle, or whatever we're doing, we perceive our world through this field of vision, right? At what time in our life do we spend a significant amount of time in a lateral position or moving laterally or even looking over our shoulder for a long duration? We really don't. Okay, there may be some small examples like a linebacker. He's going to move laterally, but he's still looking forward. He's not moving laterally for a significant amount of time with his shoulder over, right? He's looking straight forward. Now that we are perceiving the world straight forward, we have entered a sport where we want to do this thing where it requires us to be moving sideways a significant amount of time, more than we have ever done in our entire life. And so what we end up doing is here's our vision that we just talked about, and all I've done is I turn my shoulder in this position. And by doing this, it becomes natural, it becomes intuitive. It's the position that I can see is the most comfortable. I'm going to swing back over to this other one real quick, this other view. So with this view, you can see how this position is comfortable. I'm just going to draw this out real quick. Where's my There we go. Sorry about that. Lost the cursor. Okay. So here's my shoulder. It's pointed in that direction. Here's that other shoulder pointed in that direction. And here's my eyes looking that direction, right? So by doing all of that, there we go. So by doing all that, it's intuitive, it's right, it feels good because that's how I normally perceive the world. But can you guys see how that puts us in a weird position? Because now we're twisted and we have this weight on our back, and we're going to dive into that deeper here in a second. So the most ideal position for us to be in when we're snowboarding is to simply keep our shoulders, hips, and everything lying straight forward. So straight forward towards you. And then I do this. I take my chin and I look over my shoulder. And then it feels a little weird because there's a lot of tension in my neck and I'm not used to this position ever, honestly. So as I keep my chin in this direction, I keep the rest of my body in a stacked position that is powerful, it's efficient, it can absorb, and it can move really, really well. But I need to keep this thing in that direction. And then I keep my eyes looking where I'm going. And of course I can open that shoulder just a little bit, but if I open it too much, and then it puts our body in other vulnerable positions, and that's what we're going to cover right now. I'm just going to switch back over to the other screen here. Oh, look at that guy. Okay, so here we go. So now check this out. As our shoulders rotate this way, then it naturally is going to get my hips to start to rotate that way. And then what ends up happening is my hips rotate backwards just a little bit, and then my center of mass is right here, starts to be really behind. Instead of being right here in the center of my board, it's towards the back, okay? Now, the most important part of this position and why it's not as awesome as other positions is this right here. I'm going to draw a big old arrow to it. Boom, boom, boom. Look at that knee. So you can see that this knee actually goes this way with the femur, and then it bends. Now this bend right there is what I used to do all the time. So I'd do a back 7 off of a jump, and I would land, and I would have all that pressure in that position, and it would get amplified. It would amplify this angle so much to a point, eventually my knee goes, and then I would like kind of tumble down the mountain or tumble down the run, the landing of the jump, and then I would have to like pop it back in, and then I would keep going. I was a stubborn kid at that point, but I would keep going, and then my knee would just like I start having knee injuries and just vulnerable knees, and it was just because of this position. But I had no idea because it felt intuitive. It feels right. None of this in so many ways feels wrong, but it's less ideal. And I want to get that point across, is that putting all this pressure on that back knee is not awesome. It makes snowboarding really hard. I promise you, snowboarding like that is really hard. So we want to be able to get away from that position. We want to be able to get back in this neutral stance where the weight is distributed evenly, where I'm powerful, where I'm strong. That's the position I want to be in. Just for fun, I kind of threw this position in. Hey, somebody might be riding that position. I just wanted to show that it's equally not as awesome. So then my shoulders are kind of in the other direction, and then a lot of that pressure goes down to the knee. If I have enough force going this direction and my hip goes out far enough, I will eventually fall over that snowboard. And some people actually may land in this position on a knuckle, and then that really puts our knee in a vulnerable position. I hate knuckling jumps, and essentially like a knuckle of a jump that, let's do a nice jump like that. That right there is the knuckle. So if this position right here is landing right there, then all of our weight is going to be flying forward, and that could also cause significant problems for that knee right there. So it's either that knee or that knee, but let's save those bad boys by distributing the weight equally. It's a big deal. The last thing I want to ever do is go through a knee injury, and if you have, it's probably not awesome, but by understanding this right here, it's a big deal. It's a really big deal. Okay, so I'll make sure I'm going in the right direction. Cool. So essentially by having that intuitive position, that means our shoulders naturally open up, puts us in a very weak position. If I was going down a set of moguls and it's like bump, 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 bump. I have a better chance of absorbing and handling and maintaining balance if my weight's center and I'm strong. If I'm already twisted in the back seat, well, guess what? Add some speed in there and I just start skipping on those moguls like a rock. I'm out of control. There is a way, but it's very small people or small amount of population that actually can handle that. But that position is just so hard. Why make things harder for ourselves? That's the whole point, is let's make it easier. Okay? So that position right there, that's a challenging one. That's one we really want to avoid. Okay. The third point that I have on here with our stance is center of mass over the board or the contact points. And the contact points to me is just wherever your board's touching the snow, the rail, or whatever the feature is. And here in a second, I'm going to go over an example of kind of why I added that little like contact point. But the center of mass needs to be over your board. Okay, so a really easy example is when you first learned how to snowboard, you're doing a side slip or a toe slip and you're sliding down. As you're sliding down, there's a point where if you lean too far down the hill, you're going to catch your edge. So that means that the center of mass is over the wrong part of our snowboard that caused us to catch an edge. Catching an edge is not fun. It's not something that we just like love to do. It's a miserable experience, especially it just happens so quick. So with that said, we want to make sure our weight is in the right position so that we can stay in a balanced position, so that we can stay on our feet. I'm going to go over a couple examples of kind of flirting with how far we can take this. And okay, so now we just have a simple nose press. Okay, so this nose press, we may argue that you are out of alignment, that I am out of alignment. And yeah, but for this point right here we're trying to make is understand where the center of mass is. So we're going to go, so the center of mass is centered. I'm coming off a jump. This position looks really good. But let's say I want to do a nose press. If I do a nose press in this position, it's not a nose press at all. I'm just standing in this position. And if you want that to not do a nose press, that's fine too. But for this example, we're doing a nose press. This nose press right here, I have to be able to shift my weight forward enough but remained balanced on that contact point right there. So I have to have my center of mass over this contact point. What if I just keep going and I keep going? Well, eventually I'm going to slip, or sorry, my weight is going to be too far outside of that contact point where I just slip and fall. Okay? So finding where that balance point is really important. Really, really importante. Okay? So hung out there for a while. Now we're going to do the same thing towards the tail. I shift my hips back, my shoulders to back, but my contact point is right about there. As long as my balance and my hips are fine, for this example, that's okay. I want to stay stacked in that position. And in freestyle, we have a lot of these tricks where they may move out of that stance, and that's okay. And we're going to address that big point here towards the end. But in freestyle, we move all over our snowboard, and knowing those positions and knowing how far we can go is part of the journey. Okay, moving on. Okay, I'm going to clear this out real quick. Now, here's the fun one I wanted to show you guys. This trick right here, it's a good time. This just talks about getting that center of mass in the right place, right? I can just balance there for a second. Boom. Okay, so moving back just a little bit. My center of mass, essentially, this part of my body right there is balanced and stacked right there. That allows me to balance. And then you'll notice as I start, let's see, just trying to get this in the right way. As I start to lose that, my hips and stuff start to move that way. As I move that way, oh dang it, I start to fall off. Kind of a side note real quick. As I come out of this trick, notice how my knees start to get in this right position or like a stronger position. And then I absorb it down with both of my knees. Kind of funny that like over the last 10 years I've trained my body to be in that position and absorb it, and I'm just kind of playing around, and then I naturally go into that position. That's where I want you guys to be, is to naturally get back into that position without ever thinking about it. I don't need to think about getting my knees out. I don't have to think about absorbing equally. It's just on autopilot. That's where I want you guys to be. and through this training, we're going to get you there, okay? So moving on. Stance examples, okay? We have 3 big bullet points that we're trying to understand. Parallel to the terrain with our hips, I guess this is my shoulders, hips, and my knees. I want to be parallel, and when I'm coming off a jump, I want to be parallel, and if the angle of the jump's this, then I'm matching that so that I'm in that optimal position, right? And then I have my shoulders are perpendicular to the lead foot. With this, it allows me, instead of being all twisted, to be in a stacked position so that I can be strong. The center of mass over the effective edge or the contact point or over the board allows me to find how far I can go, either towards the nose, towards the tail, towards the heels, or towards the toes. How far can I go? And if I go beyond that too much, I'm going to fall. This next section we're going to talk about is utilizing these body positions at the right time, at the right place for the right outcome. That's important for us to identify. There's quite a few examples here where you may say, well, Tommy, you're no longer in a stacked position. And you're right. Within freestyle, we do want to have the ability to maneuver all over the place, but can I use the right positions at the right time? The sooner I can understand those positions, how to apply them, and when, your progression is going to be insane. Like I can't even like describe how fast that is. It's all about body positions at the right time, right place. So let's dive right in. So switching over to the screen, examples of that stance. Okay, we're going to start off pretty simple. Okay, the example here is a frontside 180. We are already starting to wind up our shoulder in that direction. And then we're going to swing that way. So quick analogy before we get too deep into this. The quick analogy is swinging a baseball bat. If I were just to take my bat and I just put it here and somebody throws a 100-mile-an-hour pitch at me, can I hit the ball? Yeah, you totally can. There's no problem with that as far as hitting the ball. But the outcome, is that the right tactic for the outcome? If I'm trying to hit a home run and I just bunt this thing, guess what? This thing is just not going anywhere. It might go 10 feet, but no way am I going to send it over the bleachers or whatever it may be. I have to wind up and send it. So yes, there is a point of time where I am out of this perpendicular to the lead foot, but that's okay if I know how to use it right. Okay? So let's keep diving into this. I am twisted here, so I'm doing that baseball windup. I'm going to clear this for you guys. Boom. I'm going to go back just a little bit just so we can see it a little bit better. Wind up, throw, and boom. Okay, now let's identify where I use the stance. Right when I get about halfway, I'm about 90 degrees. My body starts to line up. My shoulders, hips, and knees are parallel to the terrain, and this terrain's pretty flat, so kind of easy. My shoulders are now stacked, and there's no rotation like we were talking about earlier. They're stacked. They're perpendicular with that lead foot. So as I continue through this rotation, well, guess what? I'm rotating. I'm coming down. I'm pushing my knees down so that I can get down to the ground. And oh, look at that. I start absorbing it. You'll notice that I bend both my knees. You'll notice that my eyes are looking in the direction that I'm traveling, which would be that way. And you'll also notice that I'm able to be in a good balanced position, and look how strong that is. Man, we put that 500-pound weight on my back. Woo, I'm feeling good because I'm in the right position to be optimal. I'm in a powerful position right here. Okay, so we're going to clear that. Moving on. Here's a bit more of a technical feature, or more of a techie trick. It's a backside 360, but with no jump. This is a static movement, and so there's a lot of things that are going on in a very, very short amount of time. There is literally inches of amplitude here, and being able to do all this at once, it's pretty cool to be able to have that. So same wind up. Boom. I kind of like how the snow goes flying everywhere. Not gonna lie. Okay, so scooting back a little bit. I wind up this shoulder this way so I can come back that way. We're going to get into a big discussion about exactly how to throw tricks. And I'm really excited for you guys to jump in on that one, but we'll get there in a little bit. We really got to understand this stuff first, okay? So winding up, pretty solid position. Both knees are equal. I'm not in super back position as I take off. I'm pretty in a pretty strong position, okay? So throw it, and you'll start to notice that I'm leading with this shoulder, and my eyes are starting to look where I'm going. Pretty important for spinning. Okay, I'm letting my core and my lower body start to get connected. Now, you'll start to see that my, part of this body's going this way and this one's going this way. That's okay, and you'll see why here in a second. Boom. So, I'm landing. There's a bit of weight on this back knee, and you'll notice that. But what you're going to see in the next couple frames is that I shift my hip and I get weight on that. Ooh, right there, you can actually see that. My hips start to even out so that I can distribute the weight pressure. Snowboarding is not perfect. There's so many variables within speed, features, landing, bumps, inconsistencies that we're not perfect. But can we put ourselves in that position as often as possible or as fast as possible? And that's a really good example of that, is that I may have landed slightly on that back foot, but as soon as possible, I'm shifting to the right foot. And that's more of a real world application of shift that weight, distribute the pressure evenly, boom. Now I'm in a strong position. Now I'm here. This shoulder, it's ready to go. The other cool thing about landing in this position is imagine in half a second, there's another feature. This position is ready for whatever's thrown at it. I can absorb further down if I need to, or I can pop if I need to. That could be another rail. Well, I land in a ready position, and I can do whatever's next by simply getting my body back to the stance, that ideal stance that we've been talking about. So cool. Okay. And then, just a little pop up. Okay, so back to the stance. This position is about the normal position I ride in. So my shoulders pointed out that direction, my hips, my board, everything. But I was talking about it earlier. Look how my chin is essentially on my shoulder. And that position has been trained to be comfortable because I want to be in a powerful position as often as possible. That position is what I want to be in as much as I can. Of course, when it's the right time. And we're going to get into that here in a second. Okay, stance, weights, stance here, looking pretty good. Good example of, guess what? The slope's probably about that much. And it's pretty much aligned, maybe slightly off with my hips, but dang, pretty close. Pretty close. And also, I'm starting to shift weight towards the back. And if you're wondering why I'm shifting weight towards the back, it's because I'm going to be popping off this jump, it is a jump into a rail. So I want to shift my weight back and pop a little bit. And we're going to dive into a lot more of the mechanics of jumping, spinning, popping, and all that stuff down the road. But so just wanted to clarify that for you. It's like, oh, well, he's going back. I'm going back for a reason, for a certain position and a certain outcome. So I start to lean back, gives me a little bit of ollie. I can get on the feature. Boom, right there. I'm able to bend both my knees, feeling strong, good balance position, athletics. But Tommy, well, hold up. Your shoulders are twisted. Yeah, the shoulders are twisted because I want my body to come out in a certain direction. As I go into this feature, I'm going in and I land. I want to dictate which way I come out. So I'm taking my lead shoulder and I'm pointing that lead shoulder down the hill, and I do that so the rest of my body follows. Now watch. It's a little twisted. Oh, that's the stance we're looking for, right? Back to the stance. I'm here, knees are bent, eyes are looking down, and then I'm trying to match the terrain with my board, knees, and shoulders as much as possible so I can land with both knees. Let's clear that. Boom, right there. Strong right away, feeling good, looking good. Okay. That example, I love board slides. They're a lot of fun, and it's a very good way for us to identify certain positions at certain times. Now we're going to get into a bit more of an advanced understanding of more of an advanced trick than anything. So I'm going to do a 270 on and a 270 out onto this rail. So let's keep it going. Okay, so my shoulders are twisting a little bit. My weight's on that back foot, as we talked about a little bit earlier, so that I can create some pop. And you can really see that the board's starting to flex. So I'm creating pop, and then I'm in a really twisted position at this time, honestly, but that's okay because I nail it here. So my eyes, if I go a little bit back, my eyes are spotting where I'm landing, okay? I want to be able to know where I'm landing so I can judge what body position I need to be in by the time I get on that feature. So my eyes are there, and then boom, I land. As soon as I land, my eyes are trying to make their way back over this way so I can see the end of the rail. Okay, so as I see the end of the rail, it lets me know what I need to do next, okay? We're going to talk about the center of mass. It kind of looks like an interesting position, right? If my center of mass was too far over the toes, I would fall over. If I was too far that way, I would slip out and fall. But because I have been able to balance in the right place, I'm able to slide this. I'm sliding this rail for a significant amount of time. I'm not falling over because I'm in the right body position at the right time. Okay, so my eyes are starting to look towards the end of the rail. As I'm looking at the end of the rail, it's telling me what body position I need to be in next. And I know that this back shoulder has to drive down there so I can do a 270 out. And by doing that, I am trying to get myself to spot the landing, get my board to do the spin, but look what position I'm back in. I'm back in this position. Knees are bent, the weight's pretty freaking even, and I'm pretty stacked, like relatively like up and down. I'm not super far this way or super far the other way. It's actually a pretty good position to be in. And my knees, funny enough, my knees are starting to come out. There's supposed to be arrows. My knees are coming out so that I can be in that strong position. Boom. And then I ride away. So let's watch that one more time. And you'll see that there's so many things that happen in such a short amount of time. But if you can identify, get really good at knowing what positions, when, and where, you're going to be unstoppable, okay? Unstoppable. Happens so quick. It's crazy. It happens so quick. Get on the rail, slide, somehow balance, spot, 270 out, spin, spot your landing, exhort, be in the right body position, boom. Pretty exciting stuff. And I really want you guys to understand that body position, the stance is everything. It's like a pyramid. A pyramid is only as tall as the base is wide. There's this guy told me this one time, and it kind of like didn't make sense for the longest time, but the wider my base is, the stronger my fundamentals are, the more I can start adding these tricks on top of each other, up and up and up, and then I'm going to be unstoppable. So getting really good at identifying what these positions are and what you need to do when and where. Okay, next, I need you guys to be able to identify your own riding. And I hope you have some Instagram clips, YouTube videos, some kind of content somewhere. Maybe a buddy got a photo of you or something. But let's start identifying what positions are you in and where. And are they the awesome position, or are they making things a lot harder for you? That is going to be such a big deal for you guys to identify what position you're in. That identification allows us to know what to do next. So thank you so much for sticking to the end. This stuff can change your life and will change your life if you're able to identify this. And this, I kid you not, this has changed my life. This has made me a better snowboarder, from being able to land a 7 1 out of 10 times to being able to land an 8, 9, 10 out of 10 times, because I know how to put my body in the right position at the right time. Well, thanks guys. Let's keep moving on. We're killing it.